Mic lock. Empty. Artist name. Artist name.
Hang on.
Finish record 0, 3. Zip. Finish 0, 5. Finish.
Okay.
Mic lock. Button. Speech off.
Oh, fucking throat. It's allergy season, guys. But anyway, I am doing a recording. Just letting you know, I'm going to quickly do some dishes. And then I'm going to start doing stovetop homemade mac and cheese. So, you know when you buy those packets of pasta with mac and cheese and you've got to add milk and water and margarine or butter to it? I'm going to do the same, except I've got a fresh packet of macaroni cheese. I'm going to get out a container so I can put the rest in the container. Hang on. Oh, Jesus. Not that one. Really? This container. One over the container. Disposable container will work. Just put it in the fridge then. Because you don't have to keep pasta in the fridge, but you know, I don't want weevils and ants and that, because they get into like wheat products like bread and pasta and that. So it's your preference depending on which part of the world you live in, but I highly recommend keeping stuff in the fridge. Don't leave it open. Put it in an airtight container or wrap the packet, you know, the package with a rubber band. Please keep it airtight. I have found out from bad experiences that leaving it undone or untied or open, you know, not sealed properly, buggers it really fast. So don't do that, guys. Please don't. I'm going to put my pasta in a container now, so that way it's ready. Where's the scissors? Oh, fuck, I hate losing scissors. I hate it. Okay. Okay. Now, there is no hard and set fast rule for containers, so please don't assume everyone must have thick plastic durable containers for their pantry, because what if you don't want that? What if you just want disposable containers? What if you just want to keep the pasta in your packet and use a rubber band to tie around it? Guys, it's totally on you to do what works. Don't do what I do. Or just do what I say, but don't do what I do. Do what I say, not as I do, okay? No, but to be like serious now, jokes aside, there is no hard and fast rule as to pack pasta. The only hard and fast rule, and you'll find it out by experience, so try not to make these mistakes, but the only hard and fast rule is it has to be airtight somehow. It doesn't matter if you wrap it up with a rubber band or put it in a container, leave it in your pantry, put it into your fridge. It has to be airtight to stop the moisture and bugs getting to it, or it's just going to expire within like a week or two. You'll stuff up your flour, you'll bugger up your bread, your pasta. Please keep it airtight. That's the hard and fast rule. Otherwise, there's no rule about how to make it airtight. It just has to be airtight. You know, there's no right and wrong for using a rubber band on a package or putting it in a container. It just has to be airtight so that air and moisture and bugs can't get to it. With that set aside, I'm putting mine into a container because that's me. I like containers. So that's how I'm doing it. Don't want the container to be too full. Now the pasta is nice and dry, so you know it's okay, it's not going to go everywhere. I'm going to keep some of the pasta in the packet because I need to measure out 2 cups of pasta. So I'm going to keep some of it left in the packet. I'm going to keep some of it in the container. Now, the reason I'm leaving the packet open and on top of the container is because I'm going to use it within the next half an hour. So with dry goods, if you leave it, so not bread maybe, but definitely flour and pasta, if you have to leave it open on the bench for 10 minutes while you're doing other things, keep it aside. Don't keep it near. So for example, don't keep opened containers and packets near your sink because you might get water or detergent in them. So keep them to the side, and that way when you realise, okay, they're always check, okay, I've got mine next to the stove, on the left of the stove next to it, right? I know that when I'm ready to use it, I'm actually going to use the open packet first, tip any of the leftovers back into that same container where all my other pasta is in the container, then put the lid on the container because it airtight, you know, it air seals. Then I'm going to preferably put it in the fridge because bugs aren't going to make their way into the fridge, and it's too cold in the fridge for insects and that to live in. So I guess some insects like flies could get away with it, but you know, when you close a container and there's no flies in the container, you know, they're not going to get into the container in the fridge. They'll just go cold and fall asleep and die. That's what most insects do. And how are they going to get into your fridge from the outside world anyway? They can't. So
speech finish 7 finish recording, mic lock, mic trigger, but card fader 89%, mic lock button.
Pause this recording and I will be back soon when I'm about to prepare and make my stovetop mac and cheese. So there's a homemade mac and cheese bake for the oven, but I don't have breadcrumbs to make that one. It is extremely yummy. You basically you saute some onion and garlic. You don't have to, but obviously what the recipe calls for, you can then add a little bit of like grated stuff to it. So when you make a macaroni cheese bake, you can pretty much put a couple of little bits of vegetables in it to add texture to the macaroni cheese bake. You make it similar to homemade mac and cheese, but I'll show you how to do it another time. But you got to preheat the oven. You got to make it. You got to mix at least 1 cup of cheese into it. You've got to have a fair amount of liquid too, so that when the oven finishes baking it, it'll be like really thick. It'll be thick but not dry thickness. It'll just be really thick and like saucy, but not in a dry kind of sense. So when you're eating it, it'll be thick and yummy and moist and crunchy and crispy on the top. Anyway, I know how to make a really nice macaroni cheese bake. You add a couple of veggies for the texture, and you've got to grate it up finely so that you don't get the vegetable taste, you just get the texture. But my home style stovetop mac and cheese does not call for veggies. You can choose to add them, you can choose to go without and just have the mac and cheese. And like when you cook it, you can make boiled veggies on the side, like you can do a separate pot of boiled veg, or you can just have it on its own with or without meat or tuna or chicken, whatever. It's something you can have on its own or with something, or you can mix it with onion and garlic if you want, or you don't have to. I've used up all of the garlic. I'm not going to add vegetables to mine tonight. I'm just going to make mac and cheese. You can add onion to it, but I don't want to do that really. I just want to make basic mac and cheese, and I'll show you how I do it in a few minutes. I'll be back.
Mic trigger, mic lock,
when
button.
I finish the dishes.
Mic lock, mic finish 10, finish 10, 11, finish mic lock, but speech off.
Okay, I'm back. I am now going to take you through the entire process from start to finish cooking mac and cheese. I spoke to, and you know who you are when I say it, but I spoke to one of my subscribers a few minutes ago. Spoke to the subscriber directly, so they know that that they'll get a YouTube notification. Anyway, I'll go on with the recipe now. Usually when you make, like, you know, when you do normal like boiled macaroni pasta, because you can use it with whatever you like really. You could even use macaroni with a spaghetti bolognese sauce, so you could use it for other pasta dishes. So you cover it with water and you boil it and you strain it in a blender, and you just use it. Well, when we do macaroni cheese, we don't strain the pasta. We have to use a certain amount of water and milk. Right, a ratio of water to a certain amount of milk. Ratio of water to milk and margarine or butter, because the idea is you're not going to tip it into a colander. You're going to keep cooking it until the whole mixture becomes thick and the pasta becomes soft to the texture and to the taste when you're eating it, so that all the liquid boils into a thick sauce and the pasta becomes soft, and that's what you eat. You're not going to strain any of it. Whereas if you're cooking macaroni or pen pasta or something to have as a separate side dish, for example, you're making like a pot of food and you want the pasta to be a certain texture when it's cooked, so then you got to tip it out into the colander and strain it, and then tip all of that, because you don't want it to be too thick. You just want your dish to have pasta added, but you don't want it to be very thick or very runny or any of the like. Or it has to be a certain way because of the recipe. With this recipe, you're not doing that. You are adding the 2 cups of water to boil, the 1 cup of milk. I might even add a bit more, because I'm probably going to do 2.5 cups of pasta to make a little extra, so that I can put some in a box for myself for tomorrow and some extra for another person, which I'm okay with. And then the rest of it I'm just going to eat it. So I'm going to add 2, how many cups of water? Hang on. Using my actually I'm just going to use tap water. Forget it. So I'm going to add 1, 2, 3 cups of water. Maybe 2.5 cups. I'm guessing the half, because otherwise I have to get out a half cup and bloody work with that, so I'm just taking a guess. Right. Now I'm going to dry this, because it's only had water in it, so there's no point in worrying about, like, water's not going to do any harm to you. It's only water. I've got a new clean tea towel, and I'm drying my cup with the tea towel, and I'm going to turn this stove. Hang on, let me put the tea towel aside because I don't want to get it burning. It's going to kind of burn, and I'm not going to be happy when the unit sets alight tonight. Oh, I'm going to turn it on high boil, because the important thing is it has to start boiling by the time I put pasta in there. Now, when you do pasta recipes, they tell you to add salt to the water and all this crap. That is when you're doing pasta as your side dish to add to other stuff that you don't want to alter. So if you're making meat sauce, you don't want it to be too thick. You want it to be kind of runny, but not stupidly runny or thick like honey or anything. When you're making a cheese pasta dish but you don't want to alter the thickness, you make the sauce, you make the vegetable mix not stir fry, but you'd make your cooked vegetable mixture in your saucepan. You add a bit of cheese sauce, then you add your fresh cooked pasta that's been strained, because it doesn't alter the thickness too much, and you've got whatever, particular pasta dish that you'll then add your cooked meats, chicken, pork, whatever to that at the end. You mix it up and it's done, right? With this macaroni cheese, that's not how we do it, because we want to alter the thickness of our sauce to make it so that it's not like a cheese sauce like you would make a meat sauce with finishing cheese sauce. You want to make it nice and thick, so it's a thick type of cheese sauce. It is sticky so that the macaroni pasta gets coated in it. The milk and the margarine makes it creamy, and the cheese makes it nice and sticky. And it's a nice kind of runny and slightly rubbery texture from the melted cheese. To make it really yummy. So that's what I'm going to be doing tonight. I'm going to add 2.5 cups of pasta. So I'm going to add 2.5 cups. I want the water to be boiling, but so I can add it there, because what I want to do then is turn the heat down. So when the water starts boiling, add the pasta and turn the heat down, because you'll understand why as I do it. I just want it to boil a bit. Anyway, I'm going to start setting this up. So that's about half a cup. So one, and then I'm going to add 2 cups. So one, remember, we're not going to strain this pasta, okay? So that's not how we're doing this recipe tonight. We're not straining the pasta. We're not straining it, right? So that's one. Now, the pasta in the packet's dry, so I can tip it into the container without affecting the texture of the pasta. It's dry goods, remember? Not going to harm you. Now, I'm going to add an extra cup of pasta. Hang on. Bit of macaroni there. Okay. Oh, I'm dropping pasta. Dropped pasta everywhere. Shit. lucky it's dry goods because you're not going to get sick from it. You know, if you spill it on the ground, it's going to be vacuumed up. Who cares? Don't worry about it. It's going to get vacuumed up anyway. Now, that's about 2 cups. Put a bit extra in there just to, there we go. Now we're not straining it, remember? So we're putting the lid on the container. Now I'm going to turn the heat down. It'll be evident as to why I do that soon. Now, there's no fuss over putting the pasta in the pantry or the fridge. I'm doing it because I feel safer that the bugs aren't going to get to it. If you want it in the pantry, you need to put it in, because I've got it in a stupid, you know, takeaway style Chinese, you know, take-out container. If you don't like that, then you need to add it into a different container with like a screw tight lid that you can put in the pantry, but I'm just letting you know there's options. So now I'm going to mix this a bit to stop it sticking onto the bottom. That's the most important point. Do not let your macaroni stick to the bottom. Now I'm going to add, for me, I'm going to add a cup of milk. Because the important thing is when making home style mac and cheese on the stove is it wants to be thick enough to be saucy but runny enough to be not, you know, a thick dry type of mixture. Add some milk. Now I've got lactose free milk, but I don't have lactose free cheese. So note to my subscriber, you might need to take some, I'm not telling the medicine on YouTube, you might need to take some medicine before eating your mac and cheese tomorrow. I'm just letting you know because I've got lactose free milk. Unfortunately, I don't use lactose free cheese, so please provide your own lactose free cheese, because I'm sorry I don't provide that. But I do provide lactose-free milk. I know I'm a bit stupid, but that's just the way I think. Sorry, it's just how I am. So now I'm bringing the milk over. I'm now putting the cup in the sink. I've learnt the hard way to always clean up. Every time I make a mess, I clean up now because I know that I'll get milk everywhere and I'll like make a massive mess. So I've learnt to clean up as I go. Learnt that the hard way. I have. Now I'm going to let that boil a little bit. Going to let it boil a little bit. Where's, oh, that's the thing. I'm going to mix it and boil it a bit because I don't want it to be stuck on the bottom, because then I'm going to add a tablespoon of margarine, and then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour, because you don't want to add too much flour because obviously there'll be literally too much flour in this and it won't be good. You can't do that. So I'm going to add a tablespoon of margarine. Butter, and then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. And then I'm going to keep the heat turned down as I mix all this through. So just a good guess of how much margarine I have on that. Now I'm going to mix that in. I'm going to mix all that in properly because otherwise it will be like a lump in the food. That won't be good. Have to mix it in and melt it in. Now the importance of keeping the heat down is very, very important, because if you keep it turned up, you've got to start boiling the macaroni on high at first, but when you add milk and margarine and flour, you cannot have it on high or it will literally burn into a huge clump on the bottom and it will be horrible, like it won't work. You've got to keep the heat down to stop this from burning. Now at this point you can add vegetables, but I'm not going to add any veggies. So, but you can, as soon as the margarine melts, that's when you can add a bit of garlic. You can add, some people do it at the beginning. Some people saute their vegetables, then add the pasta, or you can do it the other way. You can add the pasta and kind of boil a bit of cabbage, a bit of onion. You can boil it in, as it were. You can boil it in the pasta, and when you get finally ready to eat it, you've got boiled cabbage with your pasta. But I'm not adding veggies tonight. Now, the important thing about simmering this is you never put the lid on and leave it, ever. You never do that, because it will stick to the bottom. You can't, with this particular dish, you cannot just put the lid on and go, oh, I'm going to turn it on low and I'll leave it. You can't do that with this type of dish. You physically have to turn it, if you're going to leave it for an hour, turn the stove all the way off, because otherwise you're going to burn the bloody thing. Now I'm going to mix it again, because I don't want anything to stick to the bottom. Now I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour to this, and you're going to mix it and mix it and mix it gently, not, you know, being really rough and getting it everywhere. You're going to gently stir this until it's really soft and thick. And if it's too dry, you've got to add a little bit extra water, because I've already added a completely full cup of milk to this. And remember, we're not straining this mixture. We are not straining, we are cooking it all together tonight, because we're not making pasta as a side dish for sauces or boiled dishes that you have to add fresh pasta that's been strained into it. We're not doing that tonight. We're adding everything to our pasta and we are mixing it together. Where's the... Oh... coconuts. Where's the flour? Oh shit, where is it? Come on, where's the flour? Okay. Now, tablespoons, 2. Now, you're meant to use a measuring spoon, but I'm being lazy tonight and I'm just using just a typical tablespoon, because, yeah, it's just me, I'm being lazy. So, level it off a bit. Now, we don't want too much flour in this, so 1... That's probably why it's a good idea to use a tablespoon, but I'm being so lazy tonight. 1, 2. Now I'm going to mix this in, and then I might need to add a... No, I don't need extra flour, actually. No, I don't. Don't need extra flour. I'm just going to keep mixing this until it's nice and soft. I'm just going to feel it on the thing. No, it doesn't need extra flour. I'm going to wash my hands and put the tablespoon in the sink. Because remember, if you put too much flour in stuff, it goes lumpy and you taste bits of yucky flour and it gets yuck. It gets really disgusting. My aluminium foil is for me to get the... You know, to know the plain flour has aluminium foil on it and the self-raising flour doesn't. So I'm the only one touching it, so I know how clean my hands are when I touch it, so everyone can trust that no one's going to get sick. And if 20 people were touching it, that would be a different story, because we don't know who's hygienic and who's not. But 20 people are not touching this. So don't freak out, please. And you know who you are. Please don't get afraid or frightened. You know, you'll be okay. Now, like I said, this is a very basic mac and cheese recipe. I'm going to add a little bit more water because I don't want it to like you just add a little bit. If you add it gradually, you don't add too much water then. You just add it gradually at a time or it will get dry. It'll get too thick and too lumpy. You know, I've added a full cup of milk, so, you know, it'll be fine. Then I'm going to add a cup. Now, I don't add an exact cup of cheese. I just take a really good guess. I add, say, 1 handful or 2 handfuls or 3 handfuls. I'm going to add handfuls because, yes, you're allowed to add an exact cup. You can add half a cup. You can be exact. But with cheese, I like to add heaps of cheese. So I'm just going to add what I reckon. If you're doing a recipe to learn how to cook, you need to follow guidelines. But I follow, now I'm experienced enough to follow some guidelines, but the rest of it's me, what I want in it, what I like in it. At this point you can even add some garlic. And then at this point you can taste test it, but I'm sure it's too soft, too hard to, you know. And I don't want it to get dry, but I don't want it to be too runny either, so I'm being very careful with it. Oh, this is going to turn out delicious. And you don't want to add too much flour because it's going to get really clumpy. You can't be doing that. You've got to be very careful with flour. And it thickens everything up, so you've got to keep mixing till there's no lumps, no stuff doesn't stick to the bottom. Congratulations to the occupational therapist from Guide Dogs. I can now cook. I know I can't see my cooking, but I can actually do it. So I'm going to feel what's on the thing. It's still too not soft enough. I'm going to add a little bit of water. Not too much, just a little bit. So you're gradually adding small amounts of water at a time, and you're mixing this for at least half an hour. You don't want to add cups of water. You want to add, say, I would guess about 3 or 4 tablespoons of water, so about 1/3 of a cup at a time or 1/4 of a cup. Because remember, if you add too much water, it will be like soup. Instead of macaroni and cheese, it'll be like soup. You don't want it to be a soup. If you want soup, you have to make a different recipe. But we're not having soup tonight, we're having macaroni and cheese, so please be careful. And to some of my subscribers with less experience, I highly recommend using measuring cups and measuring spoons, but I am a lazy bitch because my experience has taken over, so I'm doing lazy bitch cooking tonight. Some of it is exact measurements and some of it is lazy bitch style cooking. So please do not try this at home, kids. Always use cups and measuring spoons when learning to cook, but if you're going to be a lazy bitch cook like me, please realise you need to have some experience or it won't work out. I'm just letting you know that if you're not experienced and you stuff this up, it's not going to end well. You're not going to like eating it. Alright? So before being a lazy cook, one of these lazy, I have to guess everything and use handfuls and finger pinches of stuff, please learn to cook or you're not going to get it working, right? Okay, so now I'm just going to check this. Oh yeah, it's still cooking. I've got the heat turned down because I don't want to Just gonna feel it. I need to add a tiny little bit of water to it, and not too much, just a little bit. Because you got to have just enough to, like, you know, soften the pasta, but not too much that it goes runny like soup. You want it to be no lumps, but you don't want it to be soupy either. That's just how it is, guys. I've added milk, as in I've added my cup of milk to my 2 tablespoons of flour, so you don't want to wreck that too much. Now, at this point, I'm going to get a teaspoon. I'm going to add a little bit of food to the teaspoon, just, you know, tiny bit of pasta, a couple of, and I'm going to taste it. It's okay. I'm going to add some guesswork, so don't try this at home, but I'm going to add some milk to it because it doesn't taste creamy enough. I'm going to add, needs to taste creamier, because you can add so much water to it that it makes it correctly, but it won't be creamy enough. I'm going to add milk. Okay. I'm going to add that to it, and then I'm going to clean it, because now I don't need to add any more milk. I will just clean up after I spilt some. I don't have to add any more, because when I tasted it, it tasted a little bit bland, but it just needed that little bit of extra milk in it. I'm going to add that in the sink. I'm now going to clean this up, because I found out the hard way that when you let milk go everywhere, it makes everything sticky, and yeah, it just buggers it all up. Oh, I figured it out the hard way, and you've got to clean the flour straight away too, or it goes like bloody everywhere. It literally goes everywhere. So please, kids, clean up straight away. Otherwise you'll work out from my bad experiences that the next day you've got to scrub and grind away at the stuff because it goes hard. So now I added extra milk because it wasn't creamy enough. It now just needs to be mixed gently for a while. I might have to add extra milk to it, but I'll see. I tasted it and it was reasonable, but I had to add that bit of extra milk to make it. I'm going to add a bit more milk, because as the macaroni absorbs liquid, it takes. You're not going to add too much, just a little bit, because you don't want to over. When you're adding liquids, you always add less, because remember, you can add liquids and food to other food. You cannot take it out. So please, when the texture right now feels more runny, it feels thick with a runniness to it, so you don't want to add more flour. But at this point, I'm no longer going to add more milk. So I've probably added an extra, so I added about a third of a cup, so that would make it nearly 2/3 that I've added. So overall I've added about nearly 2 cups of milk to 3 or 4 cups of water. So when you're adding liquid to food, you have to do it. It's like doing risotto, but I'm doing a pasta dish. It's exactly like doing risotto. You cannot add a million tons of different things at once, or it's not going to work. It's going to absorb too much too fast, and you're going to have a disgusting fucking mess to deal with. So don't do that. Add little bits at a time. Mix, stir, mix, over and over again so it doesn't stick. You're doing it like you do to risotto. Thank you, occupational therapist. You've taught me well, and thanks, doctor. You've taught me how to keep food fresh to my doctor. If you're listening to YouTube, both of you guys, you know who you are. So now the food is runny enough that I don't need to add anything, but it needs to be kept stirring until it's thick enough. I'm going to take a pinch of macaroni in my finger and eat it to see if it's soft. Oops, hang on. Might have to use a teaspoon. Feels soft. It needs a little bit more cooking. So remember, don't be afraid to taste test. If you need to make extra food for your friends, always taste test. See, I need to add a bit more milk because it's starting to go a bit funny on the bottom. This is why you never add too much at once, ever. You always add little bits at a time. I'm just going to add the rest of the milk. Okay, throw that in the bin, because when I tasted it, the macaroni was a bit crunchy, and I thought, no, I don't like crunchy macaroni. So now, I mix that in. Yes, it feels a little runny, but I'm going to add a fuckload of cheese to this. I'm going to add a mega fuck of cheese. Never any extra flour, ever, because that will just taste like flour. You never add extra flour to food unless it's like a major, oops, I thought I only needed 2 tablespoons of flour. This is way too runny for my liking. I'll add an extra 2 tablespoons of flour. Or maybe you might want to add an extra teaspoon of flour, but you don't want it to go dry, so because flour soaks liquid. So never think you have to add flour every single bloody time, please. Don't do that. It won't work. Always add stuff. You know, you add what you need and that's it. It doesn't need more margarine at all. Doesn't. Because otherwise there's just too much marge, like it's way too much. At this point I'm going to add the cheese. I'm going to make sure it's nice and mixed in. I'll just finish mixing because you've got to keep all the lumps out. Okay, I'm just going to touch it with my finger. Yep, it's like liquidy, but it's a thick liquid. That's what you want. You want it to be a nice thick liquid. Okay. I don't think it needs any more flour, because when you do that, it tastes like flour. It's like, ugh. You don't want to add too much flour to it. I will be adding the rest of the cheese though. I've got it in a container. I am going to turn the heat down onto number 1, really low, and I'm going to add all the bloody cheese to it. I'm going to add it all in because it needs a lot of cheese anyway. Now I've turned it to number 1 for a reason. Cheese burns easily. Now on number 1 it's going to stay hot, but it is not going to get cold, because the stove hot plate needs to stay warm. It doesn't need to go cold at this point. but you don't want it to be cooking properly anymore because it's already cooked. I just had to add the cheese and melt it in. Now at this point I'm leaving it on number 1 and I'm mixing. Do not turn the stove up at this point, ever. Do not. Please kids, don't add flour, don't add fucking milk or water. God, no. You're going to make the food mushy. You're going to make it yuck. Don't add anything. It's all prepared. You just cook it until it is really thick. Not dry, not, to where the liquid's gone. You just want it very thick. Now remember, I've added 2.5 cups of pasta. So me taste testing it a little bit once or twice tonight has not affected the food at all, because you're just tasting a small sample to say, ooh, that's too crunchy, that is really yuck, I better fix that before it goes bad. And then you can fix it. At this point, I'm just going to keep mixing it until it's nice and thick, because the flour's in it to finish thickening it. You never want to add too much flour because it's going to taste grainy and really disgusting. Like you're going to be wondering if you've added bread to the meal. It gets a really bready taste. When you add too much flour, it gets a disgusting, yucky taste to it. It's really yuck. It gets really, really yucky. You never stop mixing at this point, ever. Now, the way I like my macaroni cheese is not really dry. I don't like it dry, but I don't like it to be, crappy without sauce either. So yeah, this is going to be like very nice. So I can touch this and it's nice and thick. See? Yeah, very nice. I'm just going to keep mixing until it's really, really heated in, because if you heat cheese too fast, it burns. It doesn't melt, it just burns. It melts, but it's going to burn during the melting process. You never want to melt cheese at a high temperature because it just fucks it up. It just wrecks it. It totally fucks it. It honestly fucks it up. Now, I'm not going to use a big bowl tonight because I don't want to be a greedy pig and eat a massive amount of it and say to my friend, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any extra for you. I'm going to remind this friend to take their medication because I don't provide lactose-free cheese. I'm sorry, I just don't eat it. I understand that it's cheese, I understand the logic behind it, but I don't eat it. So if people want to eat lactose-free cheese, could they please provide it, because I don't happen to buy that. I can understand it's a bit stupid, but I just don't. I don't buy lactose-free cheese. I can understand the logic behind it, but I don't buy it. I'm sorry. So, I am okay with lactose-free milk though. I'll add lactose-free milk. Yeah, I don't mean to sound a bit Cornish with the way I do shopping. Sorry, guys. You're like, why don't you just buy the fucking cheese as well? It's like, well, I just don't eat lactose-free cheese. It's, yeah, I don't mean to be Cornish, but it's just me, okay? You'll have to be a bit forgiving, a bit, bearing of me. Even though I can be overbearing, I'm sorry. I'm not doing it to be offensive. I'm just a bit strange with how I like and dislike food. I'm just strange, sorry. Okay, so this is about done. I'm going to get a teaspoon and give it a quick taste. Get a fresh teaspoon and give it a quick taste. So you get some on the spoon and taste it. Okay, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. I'm going to turn that off because I want my macaroni cheese to be like a jelly softness but not mushy. not crunchy, not mushy, not crunchy and not mush, so in between, like a jelly taste. Oh, yum. Okay, now my friends, I tasted it on the teaspoon and I threw the teaspoon in the sink. Yes, it's delicious. Yes, it's yum. It is really, oh, it is so yum. Oh, yum. Yum. I'm going to put a bit in a bowl for me, so that I know I can have some. Yum! And then I can choose to have it with tuna or have it on its own, but I'd like to have it on its own tonight. You can have it with whatever, but I'm having it by itself. I'm just going to have probably, how much am I going to have? A little bit more. Yeah, that's enough. Okay, now when I taste this, I'm going to finish the recording because I've tasted it, it's quite yummy, but I'm going to put this at the table. Now, I'm going to put some in a box and put it in the fridge. Well, I'm going to let it cool off for a minute or two, because you don't want it to be really hot in the fridge, ever. You don't want that, because it can ruin the meal suddenly. It's not good for you to leave it hot in the fridge. So, just going to, hang on, I'm going to bring that down off the side. Hang on. Ah, fuck. Hang on. I'm going to spill it everywhere while I do it. Hang on. Oh, I made it really warm too. Made it really hot. So yeah, I've made it so that the cheese is mixed and melted into a runny consistency in the food to make it really thick and really, really, really yum. Now, you can add whatever you want to this. You can add anything. I'm just going to assume that this is enough for this particular person. And if they want more, they can ask me for more food. They're welcome to ask me for more food. I'm going to put another box of it away. Actually, I reckon I would eat this in a couple of days, because I've got a bit left. I'm going to put it, that's that one. Okay. Alright, I'm going to put it in a container because I'm going to eat it anyway. Yeah, this is why I did only like 3 cups of macaroni, and, you know, this would have amounted to about 3 cups of milk and 5 cups of water. But that's okay, because I did it slowly and gradually, and I didn't totally ruin this meal. So that's how you do it. And I like it to be nice and moist, really thick sauce, but not obviously like soup either. So yeah, this will be very nice. Very nice. Yum. Yum. I made heaps of it. I made a load of it. Yum. I'm going to put a bit more into this container, because from what I've discussed with one of my subscribers, they don't like to have an overwhelming amount of food, and I said, oh okay, I'll make sure next time I get little bits at a time, because if they're still hungry they can have extra. If they're not hungry they won't feel like they're wasting it, and that's okay with me. I mean, now that I know that, I'd rather give some people less than too much, and that way they know, they can say, look, I know you only gave me a little bit, but can I have a lot more of this because it was too nice? I can say, sure, have as much as you want. There's a lot here. I'm getting out as much out of the bottom of this pot as I can, because there's still heaps in there, and I don't want to feel unfair and give this person not enough either, because I'll just let them know tomorrow that if they're going to waste it, can they just put it in the fridge and finish it later, because it's not something that they have to waste. Just put it in the fridge and finish it off later for dinner. Like, don't waste it. Don't think you're going to get sick from it, because you won't. Please don't waste it thinking that it's going to give you food poisoning. Just finish it off within a day, right? You know, 2 days maximum, finish it off. You know, but you're not going to have to waste it. Oh, yum. I'm going to make a macaroni cheese bake version of this another time. I am definitely going to do that. You make it slightly differently. You make the macaroni until it's soft. You strain it off into a colander. Then you make your milk and cheese sauce. And you can add like bits of bacon to it. You can add a bit of onion. I'm gonna add stuff to my, you know, milk and flour. You know, you make like a white finishing sauce, and you add stuff to it. You add stuff. You literally add stuff to that sauce. Then, when that's cooked into a thick sauce, you then tip your macaroni that you've strained off into the colander. You tip it into that, okay? And then you mix it. Then you tip it into an oven dish, and then you put cheese on. You put crumbs on, breadcrumbs, and you cook it for about 40 minutes. 35 to 40 minutes. I'm going to do that next time. Definitely next time. Now I'm going to be a greedy pig and lick the sauce off the bottom. Yum. 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 So that is home style mac and cheese. That is definitely home style mac and cheese. I'm going to soak this pan. Oh, I've used up all the cheese too. Oh, I've used it all up. I'm now going to get the thing. If my subscriber would like more, please ask, because they can have some. Going to set it aside for a few minutes because it needs to cool off for another 5 minutes. So does this. So put the lid on, and I'm going to cool it down for another 5 minutes. Oh, there's stuff on top of that. There's some, have to get some tissues and clean that off. Good, I did that. I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes, because when you've got fresh food you always have to let the steam and the precipitation of, heat come off of it before refrigerating, so it doesn't get wrecked or mushy. Now it is extremely hot, so it's not going to cause food poisoning, when it's really hot. And when it's just warm, that's when I put it into the fridge, because it's warm now, as in it will be warm, and you don't want to leave it to build up any bacteria. That's what you don't want. Fill this pan properly. Then I can wash dishes tonight before bed. Hey Siri, what's the time?
It's 7:16 p.m.
That's okay. I can wash my dishes tonight before going to bed. Okay, I'm going to make sure my stove is clean. I'm going to turn it off because I don't need it anymore. Now, I've made a basic macaroni cheese recipe. You can make it however you want it to. If you want to add anything to your home, to your home style, home cooked mac and cheese stovetop recipe, you can add tuna into it. You can add pieces of chicken, cooked chicken. You can add anything you want into it to make it nicer. I have just made the very basic recipe tonight. But there is no fixed rule onto how it has to be done. The only thing you want is the pasta to be nice and soft, but not a mushy glue. So it needs to have sort of a jellyish texture when you do it. This is why I recommend the stovetop, because the microwave is too, I don't know. You got to be very precise with the microwave, and if you add a bit too much or not quite enough food, you dry it out, or you make it too mushy. So you can't win with the microwave. But with the stovetop, you're pretty well right, because it's convection cooking. You can control how much heat goes into it. And then with the microwave, you've got to fiddle around with it, and it's just too hard. Yum. I'm going to upload this video now. What's going on?
Speech on. YouTube.
Okay.
Boss Jock Jr. Boss Jock Jr. Home. Empty card 1. Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording. 1 hour. 3. Finish 1 hour. 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Finish 1 hour. 3 minutes and 44 seconds. Finish recording. Button.
Okay. I'm going to upload this recording now. And you can obviously do this in the microwave if you want. You just got to do a lot of, you got to keep checking it every few minutes, and the microwave's just, I find it easier to use a stove. You can still do this in the microwave, it's just more fiddly, that's all. You can still do it. It just takes a bit longer because you've got to get it out, mix your pasta, make sure it's not clumping, make sure it's not drying out. You can do it. But I like my stove, so I use my stove.
Mic lock. Finish recording. Button.
Anyway, I'm giving this 10 points. Just as another prelude to my subscriber, make sure that you're ready to eat this, because it is extremely nice. It's very yum, actually. So yeah, if I have some tomorrow and then I have some the next day for lunch, that'll be perfect, because it still won't be in the fridge long enough to cause food poisoning, so it'll be fine.
1 hour, 5 minutes. Finish recording.
Okay, guys, I'll speak to you all later.
Cap F, empty card 8. But, card fader, mic lock. Button, finish recording. But.